Hi, everybody. It's Bob Ost, and it's Friday, and that means it's time for the TRU Community Gathering. For those of you who don't know us out there, I'm the executive director and one of the co-founders of Theater Resources Unlimited. What is Theater Resources Unlimited, you ask, or you should ask? We are an art services organization that I created about 33 years ago, um, originally with the intention of supporting and helping producers produce and make theater happen. But over the years, we've sort of expanded beyond producers, and we basically help everybody navigate and understand the business of theater. Um, when COVID hit back in 2020, remember that? When COVID hit, we realized that we had to find some way of surviving without being able to have live programming. We'd always been live. We're located in the unceded land of the Lenape Indians here in Manhattan, by the way. So we always were pretty New York centric. And then when we went virtual by opening up a Zoom room and doing what we're doing now, suddenly we had people coming in from all over the country and, oh my God, all over the world. Um, Actually, I just did an interview 2 weeks ago with two ladies who are from South Asia, and it has gotten 185,000 YouTube views. So I can actually say that we are international at this point, not only in terms of people coming in and joining us on Fridays, but also in terms of the viewership that we're starting to get on YouTube. It blows my mind. But anyway, thank you for finding us. We have over the years, over the past 5 years, been adapting and adjusting as we became more and more able to have live performance and live meetings. And at this point, we're pretty much pretending that we're in a normal world. Those of you who are watching right now, some of you know that the world we're in is anything but normal. But we're back in live performance, and Broadway has made some sort of a comeback. It's not what it used to be quite, but hopefully we're working our way back to what we once had. So the conversations are really more about theater in general and things that interest people about the arts. I'll basically interview anyone about anything. If there's something you want me to talk about, email me. It's fine. I'll do it. But today we are hitting on one of my favorite topics, musical theater. I write for musical theater. This is who I was before I started running TRU. I'm a playwright, composer, lyricist, and so musical theater is really, really close to my heart. Um, uh, and when I was saying about being back to a normal, uh, something resembling normal in theater, we're actually going to talk about if that's true or not. I was sort of stumbling through the New York Times like a month or two ago, and I came across an article about the dire straits that we're in right now in terms of Broadway and specifically musical theater. And then a friend of mine, a true friend who I met through one of my board members, Ben West, wrote a response to that article. And I suddenly decided I want to do this. I want to talk about this. I want to talk about the American musical and the Broadway musical and what the true state of the art is. People might have read the New York Times article in different ways. For me, it sounded like they were just tolling the death knell of the Broadway musical. That's what it sounded like to me. Maybe it didn't sound like that to others. I'm going to bring on a couple people who have opinions about this and know a lot about musical theater. I've Ben West, who I mentioned before, he's the guy that sort of inspired me to take on this topic. So he's here with one of my dearest and oldest friends, Peter Filichia, who's a reviewer. You know what? I'm going to let everybody tell you what they are. Just to say that Ben and Peter both have written a lot and a lot in depth about theater and specifically musicals. And my other friend is Cody Lassen, who is a producer. I figured if we're going to talk about the troubles of producing for musical theater or for Broadway in general, maybe it would be a good idea to have a producer on this conversation. So let me take this in order of how I know you. I'm going to bring Peter and Filichia on first. Peter, just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do now and why you think I would want you to talk about musical theater.
I've been paying attention to the art form for 64 years now, and there isn't a day where I don't think about it. I've written 12 books. I just finished one called Musical Makeovers, Suggestions for Broadway's Flops and Hits, where I give all my brilliant solutions that these shows would still be running today if they'd only listened to me. So that's going to be published next year. And also, the most recent one that's out is called The Show Tune for Today, which has 366 optimistic songs that you can listen to one day at a time. And but they're all optimistic. That was an important value of it. It's a perpetual calendar. It doesn't say Tuesday, January 1st. It just says January 1st, so you can use it now and forever. So for 19 years, I was a reviewer in New Jersey at the Star Ledger, a newspaper. And certainly have written for Theater Mania, Playbill, many other websites. I do a column every Tuesday for Masterworks Broadway, which has original cast albums, and occasionally review for Broadway Select. And I'm on a podcast every Sunday called Broadway Radio, where I give a brain teaser at the end of the show, which led to another book called Brain Teasers for Broadway Geniuses, 500 Questions That Will Drive You Crazy. So that's basically my story.
Okay, I'm going to bring on the next person I met in my lifetime, which is Cody Lassen. So Cody, tell us a little bit about your background and what you're up to and why you think I wanted you to talk about musicals.
Sure. So I'm a commercial producer, started my career on the nonprofit side as the marketing director of Center Theater Group on the West Coast, worked at NBC Universal for a bit in their live entertainment department, but have been producing independently for about a decade now. I think Mark Twain said it best. The rumors of Broadway's death are greatly exaggerated. Problems to solve, certainly, but we've been around for 130 some years. I think we'll be around for a little bit longer.
Amen. And finally, the guy that sort of pushed me to do, he didn't know he was doing it, but he sort of pushed me to do this today. Ben West. So Ben, how are you? And tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
I am a musical theater artist and historian, and I am the author of the Musical Theater Report, which I launched just a little over a year ago. And I have done a myriad different things over the last few years. I had a book come out last year. I created several exhibits, timeline exhibits for the Museum of Broadway, and I have begun consulting on shows, on the development of shows.
Oh, okay. Let me see smiles from everybody because I'm going to need a cover shot. There we go. Okay, I'm going to come on now. So thank you all for being here, and thank you for doing this. So Ben, when you responded in your article to the Times, you basically cited
who I've run into twice, by the way, in the last week. The author of the article.
The author of the article, really? Did you invite him to come today?
We didn't speak at length.
Oh, wait a second. I got to let somebody in now. There we go. When in your article, you cite critics that have made very broad, very scary statements about the state of the art over the years. And the thing that was clever about what you did was that they were not the Times article that you were responding to. There were articles that had been published 1930, 1950, 1970. Let me ask you, what was it about the Times article that made you want to respond?
It's inaccuracy, and
other than that,
the tone of the piece and the implication of the piece, it just is. It infuriated me, frankly, which I wrote in my own piece, because the musical theater is not dying. As Cody said earlier, and I'll just echo that. It doesn't mean there are not problems or there are not issues to solve on a commercial end. I would argue that and I often argue in the articles that I write, that the commercial end is intrinsically connected to the artistic end, and unfortunately I think that connection is often overlooked, and we have real problems on the artistic end that need to be addressed. Nonetheless, these problems, or the state of the stage, or the idea that there are problems, is not new, and it just the some of the quotes that I was reading from Tom Kierdehe, for example. What are we going to do about the development? This is terrible for the development of new musical. Has anyone stopped developing new musicals? I mean, it's just
well, let's just say that we know there are problems. We do know that there are problems, and Cody, I think you will acknowledge that there's some real heavy challenges in bringing a new musical to the stage on Broadway or anywhere, but it's particularly on Broadway. Before I open it up for you, though, I want to actually ask Peter. Peter, have you seen any change in the ability for us to have a healthy musical theater culture here in the world or in New York?
For the last 25 years, I've been giving out prizes for ASCAP. They give out awards to people who write Hawaiian music and country music and religious music, and I'm the guy who gives the money to the musical theater people.
And I want to actually get on screen and say that I thank you, because you got me when you helped my early career by getting me some of those awards.
Yeah, well, we love doing it, but the thing is, it was so interesting this year to see two writers who got $200 last year get $7,000 this year. Why? Because they wrote Maybe Happy Ending. Who expected that show to be anything? Notice that they got the Belasco Theater, which had never had a Tony-winning musical. It's off the beaten track. It's unless you have a big star like Denzel Washington who went there with Julius Caesar.
Get ready, everybody. You're going to hear some of the most obscure, amazing facts from this man.
Well, that it's the runt of the litter. It really is. And any theater that is not on the side of the street where most of the theaters are going to suffer. But that gave so much hope to so many people. So did Urinetown. When Urinetown was at that festival, and indeed
the Fringe.
Yeah, the Fringe. And I mean, the thing is, so many people entered that festival the next year saying this is where Urinetown started, and therefore thinking that the same fate was going to happen to them. You just never know in this business. Years ago, when it was announced, wow, wait, Patti LuPone, Christine Ebersole in a musical about women who are titans of the cosmetic industry? Oh my God. And by the guys who wrote Grey Gardens? This is going to be phenomenal. Wait a minute, what's this other show that's opening? It's about 9/11? What? No scenery, no stars, and the people who play the victims also play the people who rescue them? Well, and we all know Come From Away did substantially better than War Paint. So the thing is, there are always reasons.
War Paint, for any of you who don't remember, is War Paint.
Right. But the thing is,
I dearly wanted to see that show, and I never got there.
Well, and the other factor was the fact that there were so many aging actresses, and you think after LuPone and Ebersole left, there would be a litany of people who would take over. But, you just never know. And the thing is, these maverick shows that wind up being successful give everybody hope and thinking, if he, why not me? And that's a very healthy thing. So I was reading the book The Season, the William Goldman book, because what I did, I was putting in the margins all sorts of notations of what's changed since that season, which was 1967-68. And I was auctioning off for the Theater World Awards, for which I am chairman of the nominating committee. And we got $1,500 for it. But what's really interesting is that there's somebody that's saying, I don't know how much prices can go up. I mean, $12 now to see a musical. My God, how much higher can it go? And the irony is, here's to Hamilton, which recently raised some prices to $1,500, which indeed, after 10 years, I mean, there was a time when the show running 3 years would be on twofers, if you know what I mean. Two tickets for the price of one. They had cute little coupons around town, and you could get in for virtually nothing. But the real bottom line is that because it is a business that does offer hope every now and then, I don't think it's going to go away.
Well, let's talk about the realities for a second. I'm gonna bring Cody on in a second. The reasons that the Times cited, and I actually read the article like a month or two ago. So Ben, if I get anything wrong, just let me know. The things that they cited were the fact that there are these amazingly high ticket prices, and this is not new. We've been hearing about how high the ticket prices are. I guess ever since they were $12. I remember when I was a kid in Philadelphia. When I went to New York, I could get a Broadway show for $9, orchestra seat. So comparing it with
she
today's,
brought a cake which was vegan, dairy, vanilla.
Oh, I'm
not
sorry,
non-dairy, a vegan, non-dairy vanilla. It was the best cake ever.
Eric, you did not put yourself on mute, and now I have to. I will. You were sent into mute land for the rest of your life now. Anyway, what was I saying? So I was talking about something. I don't know.
Citing the causes for the death.
Okay, so let's talk about high ticket prices. Why do we have high ticket prices? We have high ticket prices because it keeps getting more and more expensive to produce shows. And in order for a show to break even or possibly make money, am I allowed to say that a show can make money, Cody? Is that allowed?
Yes, and I would argue that we don't have high ticket prices, but continue.
Yeah, so basically the prices are really following the cost of production, and I had Beowulf Borit on my show last year or 2 years, I think it may have been 2 years ago, and he told us that the cost of materials for building a set since COVID have gone up 60%. 60% is what he quoted me. I don't know if that's still the same amount now. It's probably more now because now we have something called tariffs, which probably are not helping this at all. So clearly things are really costing a lot. And clearly when we're faced with equity and unions wanting to improve their lot and raise what they get paid and how much money you're going to be spending, that's going to also affect the feasibility of what the cost of putting up the show is going to be. So Cody, what are the other factors, and why do they not frighten you? You seem fearless about it.
I mean, listen, the author and his editor would be thrilled that this is happening, right? The article served its purpose. It got clicks. It got us all talking about it. But you could write that same article by saying, oh my God, another year where 70% of the new restaurants in this town failed. Opening a restaurant is the worst business idea ever. It's in the past. It'll never survive. We're a risky business, right? We're creating startups over and over again. That will never change. And I actually would push back on high ticket prices, fully acknowledging that Broadway is out of reach for most people in this country, unfortunately. But I just opened up another tab. If you want to see a movie at AMC Lincoln Square tonight, any movie, not IMAX, not 3D, $29.68 for a 2-hour movie. The average ticket price on Broadway is lower than the average ticket price of the NHL, of the NBA, of theme parks, of certainly Beyonce and Taylor Swift. And 80% last season, and this will hold true this season as well, 80% of all the tickets sold on Broadway were less than $100. So the vast, vast majority of people saw a ticket on Broadway for $99 or less in a world where a movie in New York costs $30, which I think is a great value proposition. But of course, the headlines we all see are, the sold out show is $1,500. But to me, that's the equivalent of saying, oh my God, the Four Seasons is $1,200 a night in New York. That's not accessible. No, it's not. But there happens to be a Hilton Garden Inn a block and a half away that also offers a bed and a lamp and a TV, for $200 a night. So we're always going to have the ultra premium, but I do think the vast majority of shows, and certainly if you're willing to put in the effort to do a little Googling and a little seeing shows at off peak, it's the rare show in New York on Broadway that you can't get a $69 ticket to.
Well,
Yeah, but the thing is that when you talk about the NHL and all the other sporting things, most of those things are available on TV. Yes, you have to subscribe to cable for many of them, but nevertheless, there is an option. And there are those people, in fact, who even feel that watching on TV is even better because you get close-ups. Then that's why jumbotrons were installed in arenas, because people couldn't really see the field. In football, if they're on the 10-yard line and you're on the other 10-yard line, you're not seeing much. So there are options, but with Broadway, you got to be there. And as a result, you got to pay the money. And the league says that a heavy theater goer, goes 4 or 5 times a year. And, that's not very much. And I dare say that if prices were cheaper, it would make a profound difference in that figure. Back in 1965, I think it was, Terrence McNally's first play that he wrote from scratch. He did do an adaptation before that. But anyway, it was called And Things That Go Bump in the Night. All right. It opened on a Monday night. The six New York newspapers all said it was terrible. He went to the producer's office the next day to understand that he's going to say we closed last night. The producer said, I've always thought if we make the prices low enough, will people come? We're going to put on the radio that all tickets are going to be $1. They sold out. They sold out the rest of the week. Now, they lost money, but they still had some money left that they had raised, so they ran a second week, and they got ballsy, and they asked for $2 on Friday and Saturday night, and they sold out. Now, understand that the top ticket price for a play that year was $6.90, so it was essentially an 84% discount, but really, the difference between $1 and $7, really isn't that astonishing, and yet, because the price was low enough, even though the play got terrible reviews, people came. So I do believe that the fact remains that prices do keep people away. That said, for all the talk about how bad things are, aren't most shows selling out? Aren't they?
We're at about 80% capacity. So if you round up that selling out, sure.
However, the thing that is a little disturbing is the fact that running costs have gotten so high. So they're selling out, but they're not necessarily making big enough of a profit, and that has to do with how the investment is being structured. Cody, I think would it be fair to say that some producers are better at it than other people in terms of coming up with a viable running cost for the amount of money they're spending for the production? It really does change from producer to producer. I mean, you're a great example. I know what it costs to do an off-Broadway show. You produced Regina Comet for a fraction of not a fraction, but certainly a lot less than the average person would have average producer would have spent. It was. So you have to be smart about it, right? Do you think that there are producers that are better at sort of figuring out the dollars and cents of what is really essentially a business?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have a category of producer who either, and I don't mean to denigrate someone's career choice here, but kind of got into it as a second career after seeing enormous success in a different career, or came up through co-producing, right, raising money. I think the producers who came up through producing, meaning building a budget yourself, initialing every invoice to approve it, you just have a better understanding of what goes into a budget, where you can save a buck, where you shouldn't save a buck, versus someone who kind of outsources the day-to-day producing to a team of other people who are never going to treat it like an owner the way, they'll treat it like a renter and not an owner. The producer in charge really needs to watch every single penny.
Ben,
can I just interject for hopefully, I was going to say 2 seconds. It's going to be longer than 2 seconds, so please shut me up if you need to. I just want to get a broader answer to your earlier question about the elements that are causing an increase in ticket prices or an increase in costs. And this comes from some interviews that I've done with 2 general managers and 3 lead producers, on the condition of anonymity, so I'm not mentioning names. But materials you already mentioned, and perhaps Cody can speak to this in more in depth, since he's living this day to day in terms of budgeting. But materials, labor, certainly. Not just union labor, but creative team, essentially. The technology that is now used on multiple shows, increasing, so expanding staff in that capacity. Theater owners on Broadway in particular. One person put it to me as greed in terms of payroll taxes being charged even when they've capped out on their FICO. Ticket sales, or having a piece of the ticket sales or owning the ticket operating system. Out-of-town costs going up, not just commercial out-of-town, but regional out-of-town, developmental costs going up as well. Those are some of the things that were mentioned to me in particular. And the headline, I was interested in what are the details of what is causing the increase in pricing in terms of production costs, operating costs related to ticket prices, and also potential solutions. Some of the potential solutions that were thrown out were finding a way to do 6 shows a week instead of 8 shows a week without having to pay all of your everyone on staff or all employees for 8 shows a week, is one of the things that was brought up. There are other things as well. The bottom line that I got from most of the people was they don't see any sort of big systemic change happening. And this is wrapping it to your last point that you asked Cody, or that you directed to Cody. The idea is that if there is going to be a tackling of costs, it's going to be, at least in the near term, it's going to be producer to producer, because everything is still certainly an individual entity. So it's going to be individual producers tackling costs as they do, which sort of relates to the last question that you just asked Cody. And then I saw something, if I may, in the chat that came up just now, regarding the number of new musicals that opened last season versus the number of new musicals that opened this season. And the idea that is bad, which is also something that was brought up in the New York Times article. One of the reasons that the Broadway musical is dying is because there are only 2 new musicals opening this fall. First of all, as I pointed out in my own piece, or my rebuttal piece, there were only 2 musicals that opened in the fall of 1995, and we're still here 30 years later, so nothing died since then, in principle. And the second piece of that is, I don't know how, I feel like we're not looking at a bigger picture. And we're not also taking into account theater availability, and we're not taking into account.
That's exactly what I was going to jump in and say. But one of the reasons why there were only 2 and there were more last season is theater availability is one of the basic things that has to be considered here. Because we had so many shows open up last season. How many? I don't know. Cody, you may know this better than I do. How many theaters are available? And also, we're dealing with a very odd time in our history, because this is post-COVID. This is post-COVID when everything was shut down in 2020, and so the pipeline got fuller and fuller and fuller and fuller. And things became more and more competitive once there was the possibility of actually opening up the pipeline and furthering the development of pieces. Cody, help me here. I mean, it seems to me that 2 musicals opening might be a little disturbing, but doesn't seem like it's a major issue.
2 new musicals.
2 new musicals, yeah.
And we'll have more new musicals this season that have yet to be announced.
I thoroughly agree.
But it'll be a light season. But if you look, and you can Google this at the chart of new musicals over the years, every once in a while we have a couple years with barely any, and a couple years the ton, right? It's a great year. If you have a new musical, you'll be guaranteed a nomination, more or less.
Yeah, we know,
let's not get into
seasons
the
like
Tonys because I have lots of thoughts about that. But can I just mention something as well, since we're talking about theater availability and the ebbs and flows of the quantity of new musicals, which is something that this is not a complete hypocrisy, but it's just this is what I mean, where we have to zoom out. There has to be a zoom out, a sort of macro level look at this. One of the quotes from the New York Times article was Jason from the Broadway League speaking about, quote, "We love short run plays. There is an incredible power and artistry to them, but Broadway is sustained by musicals that can run for a number of years." Okay, so Broadway is 41 theaters. If you have musicals that are running for a number of years, you inherently have fewer musicals that are going to be opening on Broadway because the theater is booked or filled with a show that is running. So there just needs to be a little bit of a balance, I think, or a sort of...
Well, another factor is that so many theaters that used to house plays now house musicals, even though they're smaller theaters. The Outsiders is certainly at a small theater that used to play mostly Neil Simon shows back in the 70s. So that's, but I want to say something to contradict something about I was saying earlier about high ticket prices, because there is a type of person who likes paying high prices because it makes them feel important. Back in the 80s, there was the Broadway Initiative, and they decided to do something where they would close the balcony. Everybody would be on a different contract, so on and so forth, and tickets would be lower by like about half, half the price of a ticket for a regular show. And people didn't go because the feeling was, wait a minute, if they're discounting it at the very beginning, what's wrong with it? And so as a result, the initiative failed, even though it meant well in trying to get people in to see shows that they wouldn't be able to afford otherwise. Here was a chance. Does any of you know or remember this initiative back in 1985 or so?
I've only heard of it. I don't know anyone who had a show who actually tried it, but I applaud anything like that. Like, yeah, it didn't work, but we need to be trying things like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. One was called Dancing in the End Zone, I remember. And another one was at the Belasco. I'm telling you, that house, so and it didn't last long at all. I think it was just about a season when they tried to...
The Belasco, Jackie was at the Belasco. Come on.
And Jackie was a big hit? Jackie was a big hit? Jackie was a big hit? Is that what you're telling me?
That's sarcasm. That's sarcasm.
Yeah. I bet it is. It can't be anything but. Anyway.
Wasn't Dracula also over there, now that I'm thinking about it? But anyway.
Yep.
This is off topic.
Yeah.
Sorry, Bob. Go ahead.
No, actually, I was going to move a little bit to that. One of the things that seems hopeful, or I was even mentioned as hopeful in the Times, is the fact that plays are actually being more appreciated, or seem to be more appreciated and better attended than historically they have been in Broadway.
If you have a star.
Well, yeah. George Clooney doesn't hurt.
Yeah, I mean, you really have. That's why they're all limited engagement. I am convinced that the word EGOT has changed this business, because the acronym for Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and Tony, though I don't understand why Tony has to come last. I mean, theater's been around much longer than, I think it should be TOGE, T-O-G-E. But anyway, my point is that because that acronym came into being, actors say, all right, I'll go to Broadway for a limited engagement, I'll get the Tony, and I'll be able to get the EGOT. I truly believe that. And the fact is that so many times when people do come and don't get the EGOT, we don't see them again. I don't think you'll see Julia Roberts again. I think she gave it her one shot and thought, all right, how much do I need an EGOT? But I do believe that has changed the way people look at things. And I also believe that the limited engagement is something that really is a bit of a problem, because there was an excitement in the old days when you saw a show open. You say, oh, wow, this is a big hit. How long can it run? But now we know 64 performances is going to be gone. And so that type of thing is, they used to be very exciting, just isn't there anymore. And I'm sorry about that for plays.
What's extraordinary is that there have been 64 performances and things have made money. I don't understand how that happens at all.
That is true, isn't it? Yeah.
Since we're talking about awards, can we just I don't know if this is off topic, but it's somewhat related and related to.
It's a broad topic. It's okay.
Well, do the best
It's
you can.
related to the longevity of things, and some Charlie at least, or other people who will know that I will say I'm not anti-Tony Awards. I am anti how they have operated for the last several years, and I think it's just exacerbating the problem that we have in terms of the longevity and the viability of not just musical. We're talking about musicals, but plays sort of less so, I suppose. But musicals, in the sense that you have this. Last year in particular was particularly interesting, and I think Dead Outlaw is an excellent case.
I hear rumors that you like that show.
But I know where you're going with this. So your feeling is because it didn't get nominations enough or awards enough, therefore it was over.
No, in fact, no. I mean, first of all, for the Tony Awards, I would advocate for the awards being returned to what they were originally designed to be, which was not competitive, not superlatives. There was nothing meant to be the best. There were not meant to be formal nominees. There were not meant to be formal categories. It was meant to operate similar to I think the Obie Awards operate that way, or your Theater World Awards, Peter. I know they're for specific performances, debuts, but
let me just say, let me jump in. Not everybody realizes that the first year or two that the Tonys awards were given, they were given to people, and there was no competition. It's just
well, that's what I'm saying. And it wasn't just 2 years. That's how it operated for 10 years.
10 years, okay.
And it changed. What?
Go on.
It changed as part of. I don't have the quote in front of me, but it was an effort to make commercial the Tony Awards, to use them as a marketing tool for Broadway, which is certainly what they have become, and valuable to that extent. But my point about Dead Outlaw is not that it closed because it didn't win. My point about Dead Outlaw is that to an extent it was rushed to be nominated, and there is this pileup that we often have, not always, in the spring because people want awards. And therefore, we don't have shows that are necessarily being taken on their own and allowed to live and breathe on their own. It's geared. The season is geared toward the Tony Awards to a large extent, not in its entirety.
No, you're right.
And so it just becomes the Tony Awards dictate then the season, and I that's not how Broadway has always operated, and I think it is that way of operating is doing a disservice to shows, and I think Dead Outlaw is a great example of that, and I hope that we will be able to
but there is no denying that the Monday morning after the Tonys, the phones are ringing and people are ordering tickets for the shows that they saw represented on the Tonys. So it does do some good.
Let's get the producer perspective for this.
What do you think, Cody?
Cody.
I mean, here's the thing. Tonys are nice. They sell a few tickets, but the only award that there's a statistical correlation to grosses increasing is Best Musical. That's it. You could sweep every other category. And even Best Musical, the bump is measured in weeks, not months. So I think we all have this naive, like, oh, we're the underdog, and if we can just win that Tony, that will turn everything around. And I bet the two of you can point out examples where that's happened, but more often than not, it doesn't really change the fortunes of a show.
Well, it's very interesting to me that Operation Mincemeat is really going to town on advertising its win for Jack Malone. Every place you look, they're really making a big point of it. And I do know that a lot of producers in the past, especially the 1999 revival of Charlie Brown, they won not only Best Supporting Actor, but also Best Supporting Actress, Roger Barton, Kristen Chenoweth, in fact. And they said, look, those awards just aren't powerful enough for us to keep going. You know, we do need that. Even a Best Revival one is a problem. But yes, at least there is some sort of bump. Yes, I agree with you, Cody. It's not incredibly long lasting in terms of what you see immediately, But on the other hand, we have heard for years that word of mouth is the best thing. So who knows how many people who call and get Tony because of the Tonys on that Monday morning, even after a month, if nobody's calling anymore, who knows what those people are doing and calling their friends and saying, look, when you go to New York, you got to see blah, blah, blah. That could happen too.
Oh yeah, it's certainly still a good return on ad spend. What you have to pay to perform on the Tonys, you generally will earn that back in ticket sales.
Another thing too, I mean, I'll never forget, granted, I'm talking about a child, but nevertheless, when I took my kid to see Big River back in the 80s, he said, wow, best musical, yeah, and I took him to Cats, wow, best musical, yeah. And I don't think he's gone to the theater since, because he really thought best musical was going to be something he would talk about now and forever, and it didn't turn out to be that way at all.
And
So
that's how people.
I saw you snuck now and forever in there. Okay.
That is what you're describing, Peter, and this is the quote unquote best. And what is nominated or what is on the Tony Awards, as you point out, I think it was Cody or Bob, for tourists or people who do not follow the theater, that is their entrance. So whether or not you get a long-term bump is not, I think, doesn't negate anything I'm saying in terms of the crunch that happens, the ability for shows to stand on their own, and I saw also in the chats just now about Boop not being on the Tony Awards,
which didn't help. I'm sure. I know people who loved Boop. I didn't see it.
I did.
Oh.
Closest thing to a fight we've had today. Okay.
Yes, it might. What was I going to say? I
think we just booped it.
That really pulls the rug out from under you, didn't it? Okay.
Because I'm trying to decide: do I dig into Boop or do I go back on my track?
Go back in your track.
And I will. I'll just add. There was another comment that somebody made about this. Well, I swear I'll bring it back to Boop. Was talking about the problems off the New York Times article, and we have the existential problems, as this person called it, with what's happening on Broadway right now, and we need shows that quote unquote deserve to exist. I have a great problem with that perception, because who decides what quote unquote deserves to exist? And one of the examples of a show that did not deserve to exist, according to this person, is Boop. And to that extent, I will defend Boop to the end of the world, because who is to say that Boop does not deserve to exist and might not have been an extraordinarily well done show? Now, I will argue that it is not a well done show, and Peter and I can have that debate perhaps on another
later, guys.
Nonetheless, so there's that. And to my bigger point is, the Tony Awards can be both recognizing excellence, as they were initially designed to, and a marketing tool for Broadway at large. And I just wonder if, something that I would propose is changing the ceremony such that every show that has opened every musical that has opened in that respective season and or is still running is allowed to perform, and this show becomes a celebration of Broadway. So you are introducing national audiences to the variety of shows that are running, as opposed to the 4 that are nominated for Best Musical and the 2, 3, 4 that are nominated for Best.
Well, that has been posed many times. Many times that has been posed as an alternative. Now, back in the 60s, it was decided for the Emmys that the Emmys were going to go non-competitive, that we were just going to give out Emmys for excellence. That's all there was to it. So there was Barbra Streisand winning for her specials, and there was the Twilight Zone winning for whatever. And people didn't like it. They liked to know what the best one was, and they wanted to root for the best one. They didn't want to think that the 4 shows got excellent trophies.
To put
They wanted to know which
Peter,
one was the best.
To put it in a different way, people like competition.
They do.
It's why there's so many people that like sports.
Indeed.
So it's a human value.
Yeah, and sports and theater are very similar because both have runs and both have hits.
I want to move to Cody. I want to ask you a question, Cody. You are very positive and very optimistic about the state of theater, and yet I also know how incredibly hard it is to raise money and to get a show through its developmental path and make it to Broadway. And I also just want to insert here that not every show needs to go to Broadway, and I think we need to establish that as a ground rule. Not every show. Success doesn't only mean Broadway.
It sure doesn't.
So that said, Cody, you have your optimism in spite of the fact that I know you're working your ass off to make this happen, make shows happen. So how do you keep yourself going?
Listen, anyone in this business could make more money and have a better work-life balance than just about any other profession in the world. We're all doing this because we love it, right? That's why we're doing it. We love it. We want to bet on ourselves. We want to create a piece of art that long outlives us on this planet and will hopefully move other people. And you just have to kind of believe in yourself, believe in the art. Clearly money is a big part of commercial theater, but I think it has to be show first, not like, oh, I think that'll be the moneymaker. Right? Who on earth, back in, I have an old email, I think it was 2012 when I first got the email of Hamilton. I don't remember this, but I'm sure at the time I was thinking, they want to turn this dusty biography into a president I don't even know much about into a musical. I mean, Universal sold off half of their points on Wicked because they didn't you never know. So you've got to just be confident that you're creating a piece of art.
Cody, I have a story that I have to tell. I was being mentored by Richard Barr, who was the president of the Broadway League at one time, and he produced Sondheim and Albee and all this. And we became friends. And we were having dinner one night. I said, "What are you up to right now?" He said, "Well, I'm producing a new Sondheim musical." And I was like, "Oh my God, he's producing a new Sondheim! I'm so excited!" I said, "Can you tell me about it?" He said, "Well, all right." Then he asked me if I knew what a penny dreadful was, and I didn't. And then he explained that. And then he told me that he was producing a show about a woman and a man who'd kill people and bake them into pies. And I sat there thinking, you have lost your mind. So, it's never the idea, it's the exexecution.
But on the other hand, if you invested in Sweeney Todd, you didn't get much back. So
well, that was because of the set. That was because somebody forgot.
Whatever it was, I mean, there are always factors. Charles Nelson Riley. Do you know who I mean? Do you know who Charles Nelson Riley was? Silly, always silly, playing, if you know him from the Match Game, always getting the laughs, silly, had a face that he made silly, so on and so forth. Anyway, he became a director, and he was directing a play with Julie Harris, who was a big Tony-winning star, for those of you who don't know that, in the 50s, and even into the 60s. And 70s.
She held a record for Tony.
She did indeed. So anyway, my point is he's directing Julie Harris at Long Wharf, and I said, "Do you think you'll come in?" And his face that I'd only seen be silly for 30 years got so serious when he said, "It's a miracle that anything ever happens." And there are miracles, but miracles do happen.
This is a business of miracles. Art is actually a business of miracles in general. That's why some of us love it so much. Let me ask Owen or Aisling, do we have any questions from the room?
Oh, we have so many. This has been an absolutely enlightening chat. There's so many. I'm going to ask that if you have something that you'd like to ask or say, if you could raise your hand.
I have two that were typed in that are very quick answers. The first is Aisling asked, wouldn't it be great to film more shows, develop audiences? Yes, every commercial producer would love to do that. I've only been able to film one Broadway show we've worked on, and that's because it's incredibly expensive. It's a seven-figure addition to the budget, and that's not to pay for the cameras and the editing. That's just for the right to film a show. So, if you have a play, for instance, and you raise $5 million, and are you going to raise another $1 million to film it when you pretty much are guaranteed that film will never make $1 million, outside of the Hamiltons and the outliers that do. So I think we would all love to film. It's just not financially feasible right now. Someone else had a question about, Michael, do producers pay for a spot on the Tonys? No, the spot itself is free. And you actually get a stipend, more or less. But the fact is, today's musicals are big and complicated, and nobody can kind of put on a good show for a telecast for the stipend they give you. So every show ends up spending at least a little bit more, sometimes incredibly significantly more than what they give you to put on your show.
So those are the two that you're going to cover. Are we looking for Simpson hands? Guys, Ashling and Jay and Owen, I'm going to need you to call on people because I'm in a situation where I actually can't see who's raising hands.
Don, you just said something. I'll just Cody, comment on New York industry's lost opportunity to new shows and even filming of old shows to London where the costs are 2/3 or less.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you're seeing. So for instance, when SpongeBob was on Broadway, it was less expensive for them to disassemble the set, ship it to a soundstage in the UK, rebuild it, rehearse the cast over there, film it over there, and then send everything back to the States. Just that, the unions are not nearly as strong in the UK as they are here. So you're playing by different rules and everything is less expensive.
Next up. Oh, and you may have to pull the questions out. People aren't raising their
that's
hands.
fine. Oh, let me just find some.
We have actually more chat going on than I've ever seen in 4 or 5 years of doing this.
Tracy Swedlow is asking about hotel room prices. Have you seen how expensive the room rates are at the moment? This is also the problem since they got rid of Airbnb.
So that we are almost at our pre-COVID RevPAR, revenue per available room, which is a huge benchmark of kind of the health of the industry. But we actually didn't see a change in RevPAR after the Airbnb rule went away. So I agree, hotel rooms in Manhattan are obnoxiously expensive, but there doesn't seem to be that strong of a connection between raising hotel rates and ticket sales.
Cody, let me ask you about Wednesday matinees. There was a time, of course, when there were Wednesday matinee ladies because women weren't in the workforce as much as they are now. Is that a performance that really should be dismissed as time has gone on?
I mean, I'm a big fan of finding the right schedule for the right show. For something like O'Mary, right, that looks like a 6 p.m. and a 9 p.m. show. Because for that audience, that's a have a drink after work, have fun kind of show. We have Maybe Happy Ending, which has, I believe, both a Wednesday and a Thursday matinee because they've just found they do well with matinees. So I'm a big believer in it doesn't necessarily make sense to stick, to the same schedule everyone has. If you're the only matinee on Friday, you might clean up because there's as many tourists in town on a Friday probably as there are on a Saturday, and why not capture them? There's not an easy way to do that until you put your schedule out in the world and start selling tickets and figure out what does and doesn't work. But I'm also a fan of, the old trick of have your show start 30 or 60 minutes after every other show, because worst case scenario, all the tourists at TKTS who are in line late, you're going to be one of the few shows they can still buy a ticket to.
By the way, I think TKTS ultimately hurt the industry tremendously. It was only a good deal at the very beginning. The first one I ever bought was a ticket for Seesaw, which was a $15 ticket, and it was $8.50 because it was half price and plus the dollar surcharge. But the thing was, it didn't take long for producers to realize what you do is you double the prices. And if indeed you have to go to the half price booth, you get what you would have gotten anyway had you not doubled the prices. So it's such a false economy, and making people stand in that line and all that goes with that, I think it really has been injurious.
Yeah, I mean, that TDF does a lot in terms of audience development and getting tickets into the hands of people who couldn't otherwise afford it. But I agree. I think so many tourists just assume, oh, I want to see a Broadway show. I've got to stand in that 45-minute line in the snow because that's how you get a ticket. And yeah, across the board, we have to price not just for TDF, but Today Tix and all these discount channels. Most of your tickets are going to be sold at a discount, so you have to price it such that you're getting what you need. And even worse, not only is TDF and Today Ticks, who by the way are great partners, love both organizations, but not only are they giving the audience member a discount, they're then taking a commission. So you kind of get hit twice. You're selling your tickets at a discount, and then they're, in the case of a Today Ticks, for instance, they're taking at least 20% before they forward the money on to you.
So I see Susan Crawford has a hand up, and Owen, you yourself have some questions in the chat that I think are worth asking. So Susan, let's start with you.
Okay, this is also in the chat, so Owen, you can ignore. I'm wondering what the panel thinks about surge pricing, which is something I think of as patently unfair. Like, why can't the prices just be what they are, and you wait until that date is available for the price that you and the area you want to sit in, which is how it used to be. Now
we never thought that there would be dynamic pricing once the computers started it. We just assumed ticket prices would be whatever they were. But that's the good thing about the old days with the hard tickets. The price that was on there was not going to change. So that really has been an astonishing thing. But again, what will the traffic bear? What will it allow?
And dynamic pricing works both ways, right? If I need to make my weekly nut and I know there's demand, I would much rather have the raised ticket price be through the official channel. So all the royalty participants, the writer, the director, the designers, the investors are participating on that. Because if we price our tickets lower than what the market is telling us they're worth, they're still going to sell for that higher price, but now they're going to be sold through StubHub, where that additional revenue doesn't get passed on to the artists who are making the show. And dynamic pricing works both ways. If I have a show that's not selling well and it's 3 hours till curtain time, those $120 tickets are all of a sudden going to be $39 or $49 tickets, because I'd rather get something for that seat than nothing. So we talk about it, and it's probably used more often than not to raise prices. But I bet for every time you raise a price, there's a half of a time you use it to lower a price to fill the seat.
A friend of mine who used to work for Telecharge said it was this was in the days when Phantom was the big ticket, said it was amazing that people knew when the new block of tickets was going to go on sale, the people who wanted to get like 40 tickets, I want to buy 40 tickets for Saturday night, that the moment that those tickets went on sale at 10 o'clock in the morning, even though it wasn't announced to anybody that this was happening, somehow these people knew, and they would call up and say, yeah, give me 40 tickets for Saturday night, which of course they then sold. So that's pretty fascinating to me too.
Owen, you were asking, excuse me, is the future of the Broadway musical the limited engagement show that gets extended further and further if it is a hit? We've seen that with things like Oh Mary, and this week with Ragtime. Is Ragtime
and
already
Operation Mincemeat too? Yeah. I think that's an advertising ploy.
Yeah, all of those shows fully intended and planned on running longer, but it's a trick that sure. I thought by now audience members would catch on to and see through. Yeah. But here's the thing: you announce an extension, you're going to be on the front page of Playbill. You're going to get some press for that, and then worst case scenario, you don't sell the way you wanted to. Now it's no longer we're closing early and refunding tens of thousands of people. It's we did the 16 weeks we announced, and we're
that's right. Up. That's right.
So let me.
I gotta go. I gotta see a show. God love you all. A good time was had by all. Thanks again. Bye.
So Ben and Cody, you're gonna stick with me, or do you have to?
I also have a 7 o'clock curtain, but I've got like 5 more minutes.
Oh, okay. John Goldsberry.
There you go. Quick question. I apologize. I got here late. You may have already covered this, but I wanted to ask. 100 years ago, there were theaters everywhere. All over every borough of New York had theaters. Well, obviously, you didn't have television. You didn't have all that. Now, the theaters have all been bought up and owned by 3 different owners, which pretty much have a monopoly on the market, which is why they can charge what they do and set up the rates that they do. So they're making a lot of money. Meanwhile, the producers of the shows are scraping to get through. Would it help if we had more theaters?
I mean, Ben, you'll know this better than I, but I think a small handful of privately held companies have always kind of ruled the majority of commercial theaters in New York. And the theater owners don't set the ticket prices. The producers do. They certainly have input, and they give us guardrails we have to stay in between. But that's a measure of what the producer thinks they should charge. But certainly, listen, if we had more theaters right now, they'd probably be booked. You go back to the 80s, we couldn't even fill the 41 theaters we have. The catch there, of course, is to build a theater in Manhattan today. We're talking hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars for that kind of real estate. And then there's the risk, will the league allow this to be a Broadway theater, right? You could easily build a 2,000 seat theater in Midtown that checks all the boxes, but then you have to be kind of deemed an official Broadway theater to be Tony eligible and all the things that go with it.
Back to the Tonys.
Yeah.
Joe Krantz.
Yes, thanks. I have a little bit of, excuse me, a little bit of theory about what some of the problems with Broadway musicals are, and that is the things that I've been seeing lately, that the themes seem dated to me. It's the same storylines in different clothing. One of the reasons I've always respected Cody's work so much is because he seems to pick shows that are cutting edge and speak to the heart. But the ones that I'm seeing so often have the idea of it's me against the world. It's always the rugged individual saying, I'll be what I am, and everybody, I have to emerge from the societal things that are holding me down. To me,
Joe, there are also people that say that there are only 3 stories that have ever existed.
Well, maybe it's time to move to a new one, because
that's not
I'd
the
like
point.
to get
The point is not the story, Joe. The point is how the story is told, and this point is whatever story you have is finding the relevance in the story. I don't think you can just dismiss shows as having similar storylines as being a problem. I don't know. Maybe it is a problem. Maybe you're right. Maybe I just have to think it through a little bit more. But my gut is to say. My gut is to say that there are really only 3 stories that have been told since the Greeks, and we just have to find ways of telling them that make them relevant. So you may not be talking about the story. You may be talking about whether they're finding the relevance in today. But one of the things we teach in Speed Date, we tell everybody who's pitching, why this story, why now? And every writer really should be able to answer the question, why this story and why now? And why am I the best person to tell it? Owen, any others in the room?
I mean, there are so many others.
Grab them
Sure.
before we leave these people. We're going to lose them.
Tracy Swedlow asks, what if New York had a single purpose-built home for musicals, a central creative campus near Times Square that could house multiple productions, workshops, and audiences at once, designed to lower costs, nurture emerging talent, and make Broadway sustainable?
It's a great idea, and I know people who have been hoping to have this for 35 or 40 years that I've been in the city, and it's just not an easy thing to make happen. It's very, very expensive what you're talking about.
Yeah, I think what we need is a multi-billionaire who loves the art, who says, I will do this as a gift to the world and slap my name on the outside of the theater, and that would be a tough thing to make work financially, to the extent that you remember during COVID, the Schuberts sold a big plot of land they had in Midtown that we could have built a brand new theater on, and they ran the numbers and said, oh gosh, spending $100 million plus to build a new theater, that is scary.
Any more, Owen?
Yeah, this was for Peter originally, but I wonder if either of you have anything to say. Please comment as a writer on the ability to hear your early work. Calling friends for a cold read works for small plays, but for larger work, London, again, gives so much support to the writers as long as the actors want to take the gig. Are writers held back by our rules?
I mean, I would argue that there's a middle ground. Certainly, it's cheaper to put on a show in London. But there's also I have a friend who's a lead, the star of a West End show right now, and she waits tables during the days because she can't pay her rent on her starring role in a West End play. So I do think there's a middle ground of we need to pay people a fair living wage, but I also wish I forgot if it was Ben or someone earlier said, like, what about a 6-show week? Yes, that would be great. Unfortunately, all of our labor agreements are based on 8 shows. So if I want to do 6 shows, everyone will let me, but I still have to pay people for 8 shows.
I just saw a comment by James Simon, which actually disproves what we were saying earlier, that there are only 2 new musicals scheduled. There are actually 4, and there'll be more that we're going to hear about. So the Schmigadoon, Lost Boys, Queen of Versailles, and 2 Strangers Taking a Cake Across New York, or something like that.
That's it.
Anyone else?
Any thoughts about commercial off-Broadway's recent successes and just running along there versus transferring to Broadway?
I think
did you say off Broadway? Oh, okay.
Off-Broadway, yeah.
I think to Bob's point earlier, there are certain shows that should never go to Broadway. That either the ethos of the art is this should be a scrappy downtown off-Broadway show, or there's never going to be 1,000 people a night who will buy a $100 ticket. That being said, investing in theater is a gamble. It's high risk, potential high reward. Off Broadway, you have the high risk, but you don't have the high reward. Can you have a show like Titanic or Little Shop run for years? Yes, but you're never going to have a situation where you have a Hamilton or a Wicked or a Les Mis or a Cats, where for every dollar you invested, you're going to get $3,000 back.
I'm going to have to let you go in a moment. So Susan, do you have one more question you wanted to ask?
Yes. If there's so few musicals, we have one. So my question would be,
I knew that would come up at some point.
well, why not? But here, if only 4 are coming, and we have something that's been produced, and RK Green is working as our executive producer and so on, how do we get it in front of you in such a way that it would be considered? Because
I want to correct one thing that you said. There are only 4 musicals coming in because there are probably about 50 or 60 others that are trying to make their way to Broadway right now, and there maybe are like 10 others where producers actually are very seriously raising the money and would once a theater opens up, they will actually be coming in. There's just so many factors. It's not that there's any lack of product. Like I said earlier, there was a pipeline that got absolutely stuffed. It was engorged. There was an engorged pipeline that started because of COVID. Things that have been trying to get up and running since 2016 or 17 are finally just starting to see the light of day now. And then there's everything else that got started during COVID that people were trying to get kickstarted. I think to one of Ben's points is there's no lack of product. I mean, the problem with theater and what we're talking about here is not that there isn't worthwhile shows, although Ben would like to see more worthwhile shows, but there are lots of us who are writing musicals, and there are lots of musicals that are really eager to see the light of day and get into some sort of commercial production. What is the answer to your question? The answer to your question is probably take Cody to lunch, and if he has a nanosecond, basically, if he has a nanosecond, he might look at your show. But he's been sent scripts all the time, I'm sure, aren't you?
Yeah. I mean, it's first of all, you have to have a good show. Clearly, that goes without saying. But so much of it is, and there's other things in your control. If you have money in the bank, that certainly helps. If you have close relationships with the theater owners, that certainly helps. But so much of it is, which way is the wind blowing? Are the stars aligning? Did that theater owner get up on the right side of the bed this morning? So you kind of have to just keep pushing that boulder up the hill. Like the Lady Gaga cliche, 99 people in the room, you just need one to say yes, but you're going to get through many, many, many no's before you get to that yes.
Can I just make a comment on worthwhile?
Yeah.
If I may, since that, and just in defense of, I saw another comment somewhere in the chats about jukebox musicals. There are too many jukebox musicals, or there was the comment as well about sort of One Story, or we were talking about Boop, and there was the big push last season to call, not to call, but to position maybe Happy Ending as quote unquote original, which has become a favorite buzzword of late. And this is to the point about worthwhile. I think we have seen proven jukebox musicals, or something that would seem overtly commercial, can be tremendously worthwhile. If worthwhile, we're talking about artistically sound. And I would just personally like to your point, Bob, one, give these shows opportunity, and two, to see better products in terms of what is being done with jukebox musicals. And not, I will say, I'm one that doesn't write them off. So I guess I say, for me, I'm looking for a balance, and I think there's uh, there is the artistic aspect that is sometimes getting lost in the commercial aspect. Just as on the flip side, you have people who are looking for artistic and missing out on the commercial. I don't know if that was a tongue twister or a tongue tie, but
and I just want to say that I'm not a big fan of jukebox musicals, but I do see their value. And I actually thought that the Jersey Boys was a very well done show. On the other hand, I thought Mamma Mia I just wanted to crawl into a grave. It's like, ugh, I just hated it. So
I like Mamma Mia in the sense that it's mindless fun. Just to counterpoint to you, but on that note, now I have to run because my show starts.
Thank you.
My show starts and it's a 20-minute walk.
Okay, go. Okay, thank you,
everyone.
Cody. Always good to see you. So it's just you and me. Actually, I'm gonna say some closing words, and you don't have to leave unless you have to leave. And we'll talk after I say goodbye to everybody on YouTube. I want to thank my guests, my friends. All three of them, I guess, are friends at this point. Cody, Ben, and Peter. Thank you for being with us today, and I want to thank everybody in the room. I mean, it was a pretty big crowd of you, and I like the fact that you seemed engaged and were putting comments right and left in the chat. So if you're just out there in YouTube land and you're just randomly discovering us or intentionally discovering us, either way, I'd like to suggest that you maybe want to come in and be part of our community on Fridays. Fridays, if we open the doors at 5, we start the conversations at 5:30. If you want to be invited and if you want to be able to ask your questions and be part of the conversation, then email me and I'll put you on the list. My email is trunltd@aol.com. That's trunltd@aol.com. Happy to put you on. Coming up in the next 2 weeks. Next week, I'm doing a pretty controversial conversation. I'm calling it Crossing the Cultural Boundary. Can we write authentically about people other than our own? This is the problem that so many of us writers are faced right now about whether are we allowed to write about people that don't look and sound like us. And the answer has really been, no, you're really not for a while. But I have somebody who actually wants to argue that as long as you can find an authentic voice, and as long as you can write authentically about other cultures than your own, yes, it's possible to do it. There are all other problems as well. And then in 2 weeks, actually, I've got some PR people. How in the world to get noticed? PR strategies from the New York festival scene to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. I've got Michelle Mangan, who's coming. She's going to be visiting us from Edinburgh, and I've got Jonathan Slack, who's right here in New York, and we're going to talk about different strategies for getting yourself noticed. And I'm going to have like week after week of other things going on. Please feel free to email me and suggest topics. I'm always open to stuff. I love to hear other people's ideas. If you want to support us, well, first of all, we do this as a community service, so you can come for free. We don't prevent anybody from coming for free. We welcome you always. However, we do have bills to pay, and actually we have more and more bills to pay the more we're into the live world again. So if you could spend the $12 when you come see us, that would be great. If you want to give us a donation, you can go to TRU Donate, trudonate.com, trudonate.com. Anything you give us will be greatly appreciated. And join as a member. It's $95 a year for a membership. Why not? So that's it. I hope if you're just finding us on YouTube, I hope you like us, and I hope you'll come back. I have to say it again. The last one of these that I did, the last 2 weeks ago, when the interview that I did with these 2 South Asian actresses, we have 185,000 views. So I guess we're doing something right. So join us, tell people about us, spread the word about TRU, and thank you all very much.